Hello everyone, welcome again to my channel. Thanks for the click. I hope you are fine. So today we are going to see how to teach your students some kinds of, we can say, morals, or some kinds of, we can say, also values. Okay? All right. So today we are going to see how to teach your students some good morals, principles, and also a good character. And this is what we can refer to in the field of education as character education. Like, for example, to teach your student citizenship, to teach your student respect, to teach your student kind of tolerance, etc. Now, how can you teach these things to your students? Now, there are some ways that I can introduce them to you, but what you have to keep in mind is that preaching cannot help students learn these things, these morals, principles that would help them be good citizens, also good global citizens actually. So these kind of principles and morals cannot be taught, cannot be transmitted to students through preaching. So preaching, for me, does not work. So there are some kind of techniques that would help you do this for your student is through, for example, pictures. Okay, so you can introduce or show your student some kind of pictures and sensitize your student through pictures. You send a message to your student through picture of someone helping another, picture of the consequences of cheating, for example, etc., etc. So these kind of pictures can be useful for your student and will never be forgotten. So pictures are easy to remember and students will not forget them, not like words and preaching. Another thing that you can use is through, for example, we can say Proverbs. Okay, Proverbs. So Proverbs are also very good for students to learn some morals, some values, etc. So through morals, students will be able to remember that value or that principle. So morals, especially if they are short ones, easy to remember. Another way or another technique that you can use to help your student learn some values, some morals, some characters is through some kind of, we can say, quote of very famous writers, very famous maybe scholars or philosophers. These quotes also, especially if they are short, can be memorable, especially if they are associated with the names of that famous person. So quotes can be very important. Other thing is through short stories. Short stories are very great that would help your student learn values, principles, and some kind of morals. And by the way, stories can never be forgotten, especially if the stories are kind of influencing, or these stories have some kind of psychological impact on students. So stories, always students remember stories. And by the way, when you start telling your students stories, either oral or written, especially if it is oral, so students listen. So if you want your student to listen, you give them or you tell them a story. Okay, so students listen a lot to story and they will never ever forget stories. So stories are easy to remember and stories can deliver very great messages for the student that they will never ever forget. So stories is another technique that you can use to develop good characters, develop student morals and principles. The last one is through media. We can use some kind of videos, short videos, and students watch it, especially if the video has a kind of message a good message. These videos can help your learners develop their morals, characters, etc. So video, I still remember once I was teaching a student and I showed him a very touching video and one of the students started crying. That student, I am sure, he will never ever forget that video, and the message that the video delivered also will never be forgotten. So these techniques will help your student learn morals, principles, good characters very easily, and what is much more is that your student will never forget this. Okay, student will never forget the picture you show them, will never forget proverbs, especially if they are short, quote that you give them, especially if the quote was said by some kind of very well-known people. Stories, short stories, students will never forget them. Videos, especially short videos, touching videos, also students will never forget them. These are very great ways to teach morals and principles better, much better than preaching and advising students, etc., etc. These things, easy forgotten, and students will never forget, will never listen to that, and especially if they are repeated frequently, students don't pay attention a lot to that. Okay, so I hope you learned something from this video. If you have any question or suggestion, never hesitate to let me know. See you in another episode, and goodbye.